Alexander Russo from The Grade. This is the Education Show, and I am especially actually delighted to be talking to the 74's Greg Toppo today. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Sorry it's taken so long.
No, the fault is all mine. I'm so glad to be here because we're talking about education technology and all the deep feelings and conflicted feelings people have about it. And I feel like you have a lot to offer on this topic.
I hope so.
So let's start at 30,000 feet. What is your take on what is going on with edtech and upset parents right now?
Oh boy. My feeling is that a lot is going on. It feels like we are experiencing a kind of a culmination of the past, at the least 6 years at most,
okay,
maybe 10 or 15 years of parent anxiety about technology. I think obviously the pandemic had a lot to do with it, putting devices in kids' hands, and that didn't go very well. So I think there's a sense that a lot of parents have that, they're now kind of returning to schools and seeing, wait a minute, the devices are still here. I thought they were going to disappear after 2022. I think there's that shock of realization that kids are spending a lot of time on devices. I think the John Haidt cell phone out of schools campaign, for lack of a better term, like showed the way, right? It showed that if you get enough parents very mad about a very specific, very kind of clear thing, that they can really make some headway. And so I think a lot of parents saw what was possible with that. I also think, it was interesting. I was watching a video podcast of someone that Tyler Kincaid interviewed for one of his stories. I happened to click on a link and it went to another thing of this person. And she said something that I think doesn't really get a lot of airtime in this discussion. She was talking about how shocked she was that her kid I think it was her 10-year-old was on, I don't know, Netflix or something. I think it was Netflix at school. And she said, I don't allow him to watch X, Y, or Z show. I think it was Squid Games at home. And yet here he was at school. And her quote was, and they go to school and I have no control. And I think that word control is a big deal that we don't talk about. Like, parents want control, and I think they feel like they don't have it and they want to get it back.
Excellent. Okay, I've got so many questions, but one at a time.
Yeah.
You're in classrooms and talking to people a lot more than I am these days. How warranted is the fear of over tech? How real is the over tech situation if you go into a school and see what's going on with kids, based on what you know? Is it as bad as it sounds?
I mean, I haven't done enough reporting to be able to say it's as bad as it sounds. My sense is that every place is different. And I think we are just hearing from the worst, if you will. We're hearing from the places where the tech is just, to the roof. When you read these parents' testimony and their interviews and their pleas, I mean, they really sound quite like grounded and reasonable, and in a lot of ways, they're really like desperate pleas for people to do something different. I don't think we can argue at that. I guess I get nervous a little sometimes when I see what people are actually saying, and that gives me pause, and we can talk about that.
Well, no, say a little more about that, because if the fears are warranted, that leads us in one direction.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about iReady, which is one of the most used apps, I'm told, out there. I'm talking about YouTube Access, which you alluded to. No one wants a little kid watching Squid Games.
Yeah.
Say more.
Going back to this, like, let's say the Squid Games thing. So, like, every story I've ever read about this problem over the past year has the same anecdote, right? A parent realizes their kid watched something in school and is just blown away by the fact that, you know, Tuesday afternoon from 1 to 3, they were watching some movie instead of
Right.
attending to their schoolwork. To me, you know, the logical place to go is, okay, what the heck? Why do they have this tablet with access to Netflix? To me, the bigger question, though, is like, what is happening in that school, that kid, so that kid has like uninterrupted time to watch an entire movie with no,
Right.
you know, with no ramifications. Like, where's all this free time coming from? Like, where? So it's not a tech question or a device question; it's a school management question. Like,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I guess that's what
And is
that
that
to
what
me is a question that's not often asked.
And is that what makes you nervous about the backlash, that the backlash is focused on devices or particular Netflix shows rather than sort of overall school environment?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that makes me nervous.
What
I
else
mean,
makes you nervous?
well, I don't know. I mean, like I spend a lot of time like thinking about tech, like more broadly, and thinking about kind of how we as adults, like every generation, has this kind of weird relationship to tech, not just educational technology, but just tech in general.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think like it's hard for me to sort of put it in words, but we talked about control, but like I think how do I put this? Um, well, for instance, like one of the things I hear a lot about um, is in the parents who want to get devices out of schools. They
Mm-hmm.
talk about two things. They talk about gamification of their kids' curriculum, and they talk about screen addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, there's that line from the Princess Bride. I don't think you. What is it? I don't think you.
I don't think that word means what you
What
think
you
it
think
means.
it means? Yeah, thank you. Like for instance, like gamification. Like I think a lot of the stuff that's in kids' schools is not gamification. It's just a word people are hearing. There's a difference between gamification and game-based learning, and I think probably there's some gamification. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
guess, but a lot of it is not gamification. A lot of it is actually game-based learning that's sometimes
Right.
really good, really
Right.
effective. And the other thing, I mean, we can talk later if you want about the addiction question, but I get very nervous when I hear people invoking that word in relation to tech.
What would make you less nervous? Would you appreciate it if you saw in the stories about edtech a sentence or two of context about this historical role of parents freaking out about new technology?
Yeah, I think
Um,
so.
that would help. Okay. What else would help? What
I
else would
appreciate
help?
you're trying to help.
No, no, no. I'm just trying to think of what would make a better story, and historical or numerical context almost always helps. And I can
Yeah,
imagine someone saying, "Hey, parents are really worried about X, Y, and Z.
yeah,
Oh, and by the way, parents have always been worried, and the world hasn't ended yet."
right.
It wouldn't take away the parents' concerns, but it would put the parent concern in context.
No, I think that's right. I think that's right. I mean, there was a great line in one of the stories I read, and I can't remember who talked about it. Actually, it might have been one of the interviews you did. I think where one of the reporters said something along the lines of, the internet does everything. Like when you get the internet, you get it all, right? It's a package deal. So you
Right.
get, you get iReady, you get the curriculum, but you also get Netflix and YouTube. You can't separate these things out. I think that's a really important thing in terms of like the anxiety that parents are feeling to put
Hmm.
that to put that in to put that context into it. That there's a lot of nervousness about just the all you can eat buffet of it.
Right. Right. Well, I like the idea. I get nervous when people dismiss or belittle the parent concerns about the tech.
Yeah,
That's what gets me nervous because if you pat parents on the head and say, "Oh, I'm sorry you're so anxious, little parent," your parents were probably anxious about about TV or the radio or reading books with low light or whatever. I get worried about that. But I do like the idea of adding context, even as you're exploring a thing.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you think the coverage is belittling parents? Because I haven't seen any parents belittled in the stuff that I've read.
I feel there's, I don't know if I could point to a line in a story.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of journalists really like tech and have a vested interest to a certain extent in being pro-tech.
Yeah.
They may have their own struggles with their own phone use or watching too much TikTok, but I feel like there's I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like there's a vibe, especially when I hear things like, when I hear people saying what you just said, or when I hear people say, oh, this is just something for wealthy suburban parents to worry about, which people have come pretty close to saying.
Yeah.
And the other thing, or they'll make fun of Horvath's book, right? Yeah. They'll say, oh, that self-published book.
Yeah.
This attempt to discredit or start, just asking questions about him, Jared Cooney Horvath, I think is his name.
I know. Yeah, I know the book.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying it so I can remember the name. I get nervous a little bit about the dismissal of the concerns, because I guess my bottom line is that even if the concerns aren't factually accurate on every instance, that the level of concern, the existence of the concern, the psychology of the concern needs to be understood. And we do a disservice as journalists when we don't try to figure out not just whether the concern is warranted, but where the concern comes from.
I guess where I land on that is I agree with all those things, but I feel like sometimes the fact that it's all consolidated into this concern about tech and this campaign to lower the level of tech, to me, it feels like maybe it's a little misplaced, maybe is the word.
Okay.
I mean, the concerns are real.
Right.
Like, for instance, I mean, here's an interesting example. Like, I don't think you can argue with this one bit. Like, I was talking to someone who had, like, their niece is 10 years old. She won a hole-in-one contest at a golf club. Okay.
Okay.
10 years old. She gets a hole-in-one. A younger kid comes up to her afterwards and says, oh my God, this is so amazing. Can I have your autograph? And the kid says, I don't know how to sign my name. Okay. Like,
right.
Like if that was the lead of one of my stories, like there would be nobody on earth who could disagree with the fact that, holy shit, we need to bring back handwriting. Right? You agree, right?
Sure.
Okay. To me, it's another step saying, okay, but we also need to like do something about all this tech. Like
right.
To me, they're two different questions, I guess.
Okay. I got
it. Does that help?
Yeah, no, I think I got it.
Okay.
Let me ask you the question